Is that George Shearing?
I don't think so.
But he almost looks like a young George Shearing. I love the guy in the booth back there. Looks like good night, good luck.
Beyond the blue horizon waits a beautiful day. Goodbye to things that bore me. Joy is waiting for me. I see a new horizon. My life has only begun. Beyond the blue horizon lies a morning sun. Beyond the blue horizon waits a beautiful day. Goodbye to things that bore me. Joy is waiting for me. I see a new horizon. My life has only begun. Beyond the blue horizon lies a morning sun.
Now look at tap dance.
All right. Enough with those guys. Beyond the Blue Horizon. Hey, Jazz Video Guy Live, Thursday, March 14th. Got a great show coming up today with my friend Mark Morganelli, a trumpet player, a man who was deeply involved in the presentation of jazz for over 40 years. Here's a little intro in case you don't know about Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Morganelli. I'm the artistic director of the Jazz Forum in Tarrytown, New York. We are a full-service jazz club operating every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and presenting the finest artists anywhere in jazz and Brazilian music, along with delicious food and Italian wines, local draft beers, full bar, specialty cocktails, and an incredible, nice, intimate ambiance for which the music is so richly deserved. People just love it. It was much needed in the community, and we're just thrilled that people think so much of the club and want to return and create their music here, and they feel like it's their living room, and the audience feels that way too.
Coro de cor, sombra de som de cor, de mão me quer, de bem me diz, de me dizendo assim, serei feliz e flor.
The idea here is to basically channel Stan Getz in a way through my flugelhorn, because Stan was a big influence on me musically, and so I'm trying to have the color of the flugelhorn sound, but think of how Stan played with João Gilberto and Antonio Carlos Jobim and all these phenomenal Brazilian musicians. I really hope to achieve, first of all, is to express my love of Brazilian music and Brazilian musicians and Brazilian people and Brazilian culture through this double CD. I've been, this has been percolating for many, many years with me, and so to be able to collaborate with all these fine artists and create this music is a real dream come true.
Hi, I'm Mark Morganelli, and my group, the Jazz Forum All-Stars, recently recorded our new double CD, Brazil, of all Brazilian music, 28 different tracks by 10 different Brazilian composers. I love Brazilian music because of the melody, the harmony, the rhythm. We featured bossa nova, samba, and even a toada, which is a dance form from Minas Gerais. We decided to be very organic with this Brazil double CD, hence we recorded it live here at the Jazz Forum. We're very excited about the Brazil CD and want to communicate that excitement in live performance with our audiences all over the world. I think you can do all your practicing at home, you can rehearse, but when you perform in concert, you're communicating not only with the musicians around you in a dialogue or conversation, but you're then opening that conversation to the public, your audience. It's a really lovely environment in which to create, and usually, if you get lucky, magic happens.
Trumpeter Mark.
Oops, I'm sorry. I pushed the wrong button. Oh boy. Just as we were going to get a chance to learn more about Mark, I ended the video prematurely. My apologies, but we got the real thing here. Mark, how you doing?
Hi, Brett. Thanks for having me.
Okay, it's great to see you. Hopefully Skype will work through this entire broadcast and you won't end up getting frozen. So we know you as a presenter, as a trumpeter. Where are you from originally, and how did you get started in playing jazz and being involved with jazz, Mark?
Well, I grew up in Glen Head, Long Island, on the North Shore, about 45 minutes an hour from New York City. And I really started getting into jazz by through my dad playing big band albums. And I would drum with him on the floor to the big bands of Glenn Miller, Dorsey, Bellington, Basie, Artie Shaw, and that was so infectious. That really hooked me as a very young person.
And what was your impetus to play the trumpet?
Well, it's funny, in fourth grade, which was a little while ago, 1963 or 4, I guess, 64, I decided in fourth grade to take the violin when offered a musical instrument choice because my best friend at the time, David Wasserman, was playing the violin, had chosen the violin. So I got the violin home and couldn't make a sound, forget it, My dad said, don't worry about it. Why don't you take it back and trade it in for a trumpet? Louis Armstrong, Harry James. So my father says. The rest is history. Okay, so after high school, I went to Bucknell University. And I got involved with the Bucknell Jazz and Rock Ensemble, 23-piece big band. And we wound up doing approximately 200 gigs in those 4 years, recorded 4 records. And I became not only the lead trumpet player and sometimes soloist, but conductor and business manager. And I wound up booking the band at the Montreux Jazz Festival in 1976. And we raised the money to go over there and play for a week, and then came back and opened for Sha Na Na at Wolf Trap. And at that same time, I was then living at the Creative Arts House, a special interest house at Bucknell University, where I started a series of coffee houses in our basement where we would offer jazz, ethnic music, classical, folk, contemporary, and along with poetry readings and photography exhibits and art exhibits. So that's where I started actually presenting, music. And then of course that led to, coming to New York and eventually starting the Jazz Forum. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, what happened is I came off the road after my senior year of college with my band. We played in Pennsylvania and Florida, came off the road, I was living at home with my parents, which lasted about 3 months, and I practiced a lot. And I got a gig in New York at the Village Gate with Bob January's original swing era orchestra. So I was making rehearsal big bands and playing in that band, and I got an apartment down the block from the Village Gate at Bleecker and Thompson, and I lasted there about 6 months, and then I decided that I just didn't want to play in an apartment building, and I found this loft. I took the loft with a couple of other musicians in the East Village in 1978, and then had the rehearsal big band, which lasted in 78 and 79. And then by the middle of 79, decided to open it to the public as the Jazz Forum. So that's when I took the big leap. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry about that. A little audio issue just solved here.
Okay.
This is a one-man band, folks, and sometimes I pushed the wrong button. My apologies. I'm working on it. I'm learning. In any event, so part of this leap was presenting some of the coolest music in New York. Let's go to a video about someone that we're both knowing and knew and loved, and we'll talk about it afterwards. I'm talking about the great Art Blakey.
Done that.
Yeah, the great Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. This was a jazz messengers reunion group that featured Wallace, Roney on the trumpet, Curtis Fuller on the trombone, Cedar Walton on piano, Charnette Moffat on bass, and a tenor sax player who really didn't play with Art, Joe Henderson. Mark, do you have any Art Blakey stories
that I can say on the air?
Yeah.
Well, yes. Art and I were neighbors. When I had the second jazz forum at Broadway and Bleecker, 81 to 83, I also had an apartment. I lived in the loft there for a while until my landlord made me observe the commercial usage in the lease and get an apartment. So I got an apartment at 89 Bleecker at Mercer, and Art had an apartment at 77 Bleecker. As did Winton and Branford. They also shared an apartment in the same building. And on the other side of the street was the Jazz Forum at Broadway and Bleecker, 648 Broadway. So I saw a lot of Art. I presented him, I don't know, maybe 3-4 night gigs in a row, 8 times or something, some crazy number, a lot. And we also hung out. So like after one of the gigs, I remember, it ended like 2:30 in the morning or whatever it was, and I probably had him playing 3 sets. And then we decided to go over to 7th Avenue South and see if Louis Basil, the Vanguard was happening, and either closed out those places or nothing was going on. Then we decided to go and have an early breakfast at the diner on 6th Avenue there. And so we sat there having breakfast, chatting with other people for a couple hours, and then he and I took a cab back home. It wasn't that far to go, but we took a cab back home to Bleecker and Broadway at 6 o'clock in the morning. So that was a particularly memorable time with Art. And I used to go over to his apartment, and he was married to Ann Arnold at that point. They had 2 little boys together who were probably, 40 years old almost, So, but he was an amazing guy. I remember the last time I saw him, he was playing a Jazzmobile at Grant's Tomb up on 125th and Broadway, Riverside Drive, and by Riverside Church. And our son Ian had just been born in December of 89, so this would have been, I guess, summer of 90. And he looked at me, and I'm holding Ian, he goes, "That's you?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Wow." So it was really nice to connect with him and show him that I was a father and all of that. But I knew him for about the last 10 years of his life. And, it was really amazing knowing him. He told me he had been to Japan, because I saw that clip from the Mount Fuji Jazz Festival. He said he had been to Japan 38 times, played, and I'm a citizen of the world.
Yeah, I had a conversation with him once. Towards the end of his life, I think he married a Japanese woman. I can't remember, but he just had a child. He was 70. And I went up to him at a gig and I said, "Congratulations, man." And he turned to me and he said, "Ain't science wonderful?"
He was amazing. He was really amazing. And so supportive for me, to be able to, have somebody of his stature playing in my little loft in the village. It wasn't a little, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Now that clip also showed someone who left us recently, who was a jazz messenger, and that's Wallace Roney. Did you know Wallace?
I not only knew him, but right where I'm sitting, he played with his quintet twice. 2 different times here. The last time was on his 59th birthday, last Memorial Day weekend. Unfortunately, of course, as you mentioned, he left us. And I first met him at the Jazz Forum when he came up to me with his trumpet in a hard case, a little straight hard case, and asked me if he could sit in on the Tuesday night jam session that was led by Joe Jones Jr. And I said, "Of course, man. take your horn out, go up there and play, man. It's an open jam session. But he was so shy at that point. He was a really shy guy. And I think there was an element of that shyness to the very end with him, as a matter of fact. But, you know, put the trumpet up to his lips and boom, you know, whether it was his own group or playing, you know, when he toured with Wayne and Herbie, Ron and Tony, or any of those great groups that he played with.
I screwed that up. One of the things about aging is that we lose our friends. I mean, this is just something, you know, this part of life, and some exit prematurely, and some, you know, later on. But it's not easy, and you know, we see some people like Wallace. For me, Wallace never really got, you know, the type of recognition that you know, I think he deserved. I mean, Wallace was a phenomenal trumpet player, and he was kind of in the shadow of Miles in a way. I mean, he loved Miles and certainly was influenced by him, but he was definitely his own man. Mark, who are some of your other favorite trumpeters? Because you are a trumpet player yourself.
Yes. Other than Miles, who you just mentioned, Dizzy, definitely Dizzy. I learned a lot from Dizzy. I even got to play with him in his basement and all that kind of stuff. So I don't take that lightly. Lee Morgan, Clifford Brown, Blue Mitchell, Chet Baker, Tom Harrell, Randy Brecker. Oh my goodness, of the Roy Hargrove, you know, of the more recent vintage players. There's a young guy on the scene who's fabulous, Givden Gellin. He's fabulous. Freddie Hendrix, Jeremy Pelt. There's just so many great trumpet players out here, you know.
Oops, sorry. Yes, there are some amazing trumpet players out there, and there's some amazing baritone sax players. Let's go back and look at a guy who Mark worked with and someone we always loved, Pepper Adams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Pepper Adams. Mark, what do you remember about Pepper Adams?
I remember a lot, but first I got to piggyback on the trumpet question. Clark Terry pictured there with Pepper. Oh my God. Clark was a major influence on me and a great friend. Pepper, I met with through going to the Village Vanguard to see Thad Jones and Mel Lewis Orchestra, and I met Pepper. And then I found out through David Amram that David was going to bring Pepper to my college, to Bucknell University, for his artist in residency. And so I told Pepper this at the Vanguard when I went to see Thad and Mel, and Pepper hadn't even gotten the gig yet from David. But he did wind up coming with David and Ray Mantilla, whom we just lost, Beaver Harris on drums, and Tony Kniff on bass. And so that's when I met Pepper. And then within a couple of years later, after I graduated from Bucknell, I opened the Jazz Forum, and I started presenting Pepper. So in the first 3 months of the club, Pepper played with his group, and Pepper used to trust me implicitly to get him the rhythm section. So I got him Kenny Barron, John Hicks, all these wonderful players. He really liked it when I sent in Al Foster to play drums. So Al would then call me when Al was playing with Miles, playing all that backbeat, funky rock stuff. Al Foster would say, "Hey, you got Pepper coming in. Can I play with Pepper again? That was so great." So Al played with Pepper there. Maybe Kenny Washington too. I can't remember, but Ray Drummond. So we always had great groups. And the way I would book back then, it would be 2, 3, 4 times a year. So I saw these guys a lot. Pepper used to, being Irish, Pepper came in with his own 6-pack of Molson Canadian. And every once in a while, I'd give him something else. And he says, "Yeah, sure, I'll drink that. I'm Irish. I'll drink anything." But he was amazing. He was great. Fantastic.
Yeah. Mark, we're starting to get some questions here from our Jazz Video Guy Live audience.
Okay.
Harry Weinberg, Mark Morganelli, thanks for your dedication to the music. And I don't know if you remember me, but I bought the Baby Grand from you at the Jazz Forum in 1981. I think you were replacing it with a new one.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Thank you. You helped me on my long career flight.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, because actually I mentioned to Brett earlier, in the pool room here at the Jazz Forum is the Steinway that we just referred to from Steinway Hall in 1981, specifically for the first time I presented Tommy Flanagan and Barry Harris together with 2 Steinways and bass and drums. That was May of 1981. And then I still have that piano 39 years later. It's hard to believe. But we upgraded with the piano that's right behind me here, which is a Steinway B. The other one's a Steinway S, 5-foot. This is a 7-footer chosen by Bill Charlap and myself at Steinway at the factory in Long Island City.
Question from yesterday's guest, Julie Loken. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Julie.
Being a musician, do you often make booking decisions based on musicianship rather than commercial appeal?
All the time. I think, Julie, you and I had this conversation one time many years ago, saying that, and I think I had the same conversation or a similar conversation with Frank Malfitano one time, where, you don't have to just book stuff you like and you love. You can book other stuff that, will make you money so that you can do what you love. Well, thankfully, I can say that I'd say 99% of the time I've been able to book what I love, and maybe 3/4 of the time it's made money, which is, allowed me to do this for 41 years now. But I stay with my passion, and I guess on my first record in '82, I think in the liner notes written by Mitchell Seidel, he referred to me as a dyed-in-the-wool bebopper, and somehow I still am.
Well, somehow I still am a dyed-in-the-wool bebopper myself. Now, we're living in an extremely difficult time. The clubs are closed. There's no concerts. You're doing something called the in-house, the at-home series. Could you tell us something about this, Mark?
So in the pause, in the intercession here now, we decided to keep the music going and keep our presence going, at least in cyberspace. So I've invited different artists to perform from their homes every Saturday night for just a half-hour performance. And this will be, I think, our 8th consecutive, live stream on Facebook. Sometimes the artist will, simultaneously stream it on YouTube like they're doing right now. This Saturday, we're featuring Kate Baker, who played and sang right here with her late husband, my dear buddy, Vic Juris. They played here Thanksgiving weekend. And I asked Kate if she would sing for us from their home in West Orange, New Jersey. And they just happened to be across the street from my other dear buddy and her buddy, Dave Stryker. So I asked and suggested that they perform together, which is going to happen on Saturday from 7 to 7:30. Very excited about that.
And who's coming up on the At Home series?
Next Saturday, I had to drive a hard bargain, but my dear longtime friend, someone I've collaborated with and produced on record, Donald Harrison, will be playing for us from New Orleans, from his house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how will jazz clubs have to reconfigure in the new norm here because of the virus?
Well, we seat 85 to 100 people here in our jazz forum, the 3rd edition here at Tarrytown, New York. And we understand until there's a cure, a treatment, and then ultimately a vaccine, that we will more than likely keep the social distancing in place. Naturally, we're sanitizing the place all the time. And as soon as we're given the green light to reopen, we'll probably do that with a limited capacity and hope that people continue to support us. We've been fundraising online because we're running the club as a program of our 35-year-old nonprofit, Jazz Forum Arts. So people have been donating, giving us tax-exempt donations, contributions, and that's been wonderful. And it's sustaining us through this time period. And we hope to be able to hire back our staff and have the artists that I've already booked and other artists coming in and playing, because every Friday and Saturday we have jazz here and Sundays Brazilian music. So we are actually in a couple of weeks celebrating our 3rd anniversary of the club, which makes it longer running than either of my 2 iterations of the first 2 Jazz Forum clubs in New York. 1.5 years on the first one at Cooper Square and 2.5 years at Broadway and Bleecker. So that's what's happening on the local level for us.
Well, I think whenever this thing plays out, I don't know what the time frame is, I think people are going to be starved for live music.
Absolutely.
I think that there's going to be a tremendous resurgence because music is a healing force. We really need that, perhaps more than ever. Let's go to back to the trumpet, and I want to play a track by one of my favorite trumpeters, and we'll talk about him after on the other side, Woody Shaw.
Oh.
that was Woody Shaw on trumpet. You might have seen Nat Adderley next to him, Joe Henderson on tenor, a group called the Paris Reunion Band. Not sure when that was recorded. Mark, what are your memories of Woody Shaw?
Well, I was thinking, I have one word that I think describes him: intense. And I first met him when Maxine Gordon, then Maxine Gregg, called me and asked if she could rent my first Jazz Forum loft at Cooper Square for Woody's rehearsal for his concert jazz ensemble, about a 10-piece band. And so he came in and he used my big band stands, and he rehearsed the band with Carter Jefferson, Steve Turay, I think Onaje Allen Gumbs, Victor Lewis, Clint Houston, Lois Colin on harp, maybe Carter Jefferson. Anyway, they rehearsed for Rosewood, the album on Columbia Records, Rosewood. And that was really great to see and meet him and hang out. And then eventually, then he wound up playing at the club. I'm not sure which order this occurred, in which order, but he played at Cooper Square. And in addition to, being completely inspired by him as a trumpet player, he drew very well. He had a big following, and a lot of people came to see him play. And by the second club at Broadway and Bleecker, even more people were able to see him play with the quintet. And then Bruce Lundvall, who was a friend, and we went to Bucknell University 20 years apart, asked me if he could record Woody's band at the Jazz Forum. So we did this record there with Steve Turay, Bobby Hutcherson was the special guest, Mulgrew Miller on piano, Stafford James on bass, and Tony Reedus on drums, called Master of the Art. And the outtakes became a second album called Night Music. Michael Coscuno was involved as producer, and Mike Berniker, I think, as recording engineer and associate producer. And it was great. And I remember Walter Davis Jr. coming in to the rehearsal with his tune called 400 Years Ago Tomorrow. There must have been a date, 400 years, and this was 1982. So 1482, there must have been something that happened that this tune alluded to. And he showed Mulgrew the tune, and they worked on it with the band, the rhythm section first, and then the band came in and they rehearsed it, and they ultimately played it on the gig. I think it was a 2-night gig, and they recorded everything. And it was the first track on the Master of the Art album, which I think is a great album. So the other thing I remember about Woody, he practiced Tai Chi. The Master of the Art alluded to him being a master of the art of Tai Chi. So he used to practice his Tai Chi in my loft. And, at one point we were chatting and blah, blah, blah. And he knew I was a trumpet player, obviously. And he said, "Hey, Mark, you and me, let's take a band to Europe, 5 trumpets and rhythm section. You, me, Randy Brecker, Tom Harrell, and John Faddis with a rhythm section." I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Never happened, but it was nice that he thought of me in those terms.
Yeah, one of the unique things about this music is the unique personalities of the people who play it. And one such individual was a man named Philly Joe Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a rare video of Philly Joe Jones with Bill Evans. They recorded together and made that appearance at the Umbria Jazz Festival. Mark, didn't you book Philly Joe with Damaroni into the Jazz Forum?
It's funny because the bootleg video film says Damaronia 1983 when it's actually the Philly Joe Jones Quartet, and I think it's 1982. So I never booked Damaronia that I remember, but I did hear Philly play with Damaronia at Lush Life down the block at Bleecker and Thompson. But he played multiple times with his quartet, Philly did, at the Jazz Forum between 81 and 83. And I used to call him in Philly and say, "Hey, Philly, it's Mark, up at the Jazz Forum in New York. Are you open next weekend?" I mean, this is when things could happen that quickly back in the day. "Yeah, I got nothing." He'd load his drums in his trunk of his car and drive up from Philadelphia and crash at, I think, Gene Adler's pad, piano player. And he'd play Friday and Saturday. And so his working band in my place was Charles Davis on tenor, Walter Davis Jr. on piano, and Larry Ridley on bass. And one of the times he played, which is the aforementioned bootleg tape, was done. Wynton Marsalis sat in at the 1 a.m. set. We used to do 3 sets from 10 till 2 in the morning, 10 p.m. Can you imagine back then? You didn't even have your first set until 10. But Wynton sat in and played like 4 tunes with them, which was amazing. And Wynton to this day remembers it as a highlight for him. So Philly, I remember Philly showing me stuff on the piano at the club, at the Jazz Forum. He took me over to the piano and showed me stuff. He was amazing. He was a great drummer, fantastic musician, great group, and so many people looked up to him. And I noticed in that clip a young Mark Johnson on bass.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was Bill's last band, not with Philly Joe.
Joe LaBarbera.
Joe LaBarbera on drums.
Yeah. They played at Fat Tuesdays, and in the middle of the week, basically Bill Evans OD'd and passed away, and Andy Laverne finished out the week with Mark Johnson and Joe LaBarbera at Fat Tuesdays. That was in 1980.
Wow, some history there.
Yep.
Well, we've kind of burned through our hour here. Mark, do you want to do a little playing before we jump out of here?
Sure. But you mentioned in your promo that the picture of me and Sonny Rollins that was at the Tarrytown Music Hall with a little girl.
Yeah.
Asked him to sign the record, and you said, but I was trying to convince her to listen to Monk. So how about a little Blue Monk?
Go for it. Yeah.
All right.
Beautiful, man. You like playing Monk?
Yeah. On my first album, the first tune I have is in '82. Well, You Needn't.
Yeah. I think we're all.
That's the year he died. '82. He died in February 17th. I made my I was one of the first people to pass by his open casket at St. Peter's at Citicorp Center. I had never seen him play. And that's the only time I saw him. It was so heavy to see him in that casket there. And so I felt, just inspired. And I decided the first tune I would record would be Monk,
Yeah, funny, interesting story. The day Monk passed, I went to a gig at Fat Tuesdays, Sonny Stitt.
Wow.
I remember the day because a TV crew came down to interview Art Blakey about Monk.
Wow.
And the band was Sonny Stitt, Andy Laverne, Mike Richmond on bass, Vic Juris on guitar, and Billy Hart on drums.
Wow.
And as you can imagine, Sonny Stitt was just unbelievable. I think that was the first time I heard Vic.
Yeah.
We lost Vic a couple months ago. Vic was a wonderful guitar player and a great guy. Were you a friend of Vic's?
He was like my brother. We were friends for 40 years. He's on my first record that I just mentioned, on my second album with Harold Land and Jimmy Cobb. And we did the QE2 together to the Newport Jazz Festival. We played Club Med together in the Caribbean. We figured out at one point we played almost between 1,000 and 2,000 duo gigs, flugelhorn and guitar. Think of that, right?
Wow.
1 to 2,000 duo gigs. I mean, it was a whole different era in New York back then. You could play 2-3 times a week, duo gigs, and then play trios and quartets, and it was a whole different thing. Now you're lucky if you get a gig a year in the city.
Yeah, well, things have changed and they're continuing to change. Mark, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this and go through the technical loops that we had to jump through. I'm sorry about the glitches today. That's part of this medium. We're working on it. But I sure loved hearing your stories, and I look forward to your at-home broadcast. Once again, remind us when the next broadcast is and who's going to be appearing.
Sure. Thank you, Brett. It's called Jazz Forum at Home while we're all in quarantine. And it's every Saturday from 7 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This Saturday, our 8th broadcast will be featuring vocalist Kate Baker along with guitarist Dave Stryker. And then next Saturday, the 23rd of May, from his home in New Orleans, Donald Harrison.
Well, that should be pretty exciting. I want to thank everyone for coming by today on Facebook and YouTube. Please join us again tomorrow when my special guest will be tenor saxophonist Bill Pierce. So everybody, stay healthy, stay safe, and blessings to your family.